100 Bikers cornered terrified Waitress. Minutes later, they saw her military tattoo. The leader's hand was already on the waitress's wrist when the blonde woman in the corner finally moved. What happened in the next 2 minutes would silence 100 roaring engines outside and leave every witness forever changed. But to understand that night, we need to go back to where fear first met courage. The bell above the door of Marla's diner gave a tired chime as another customer left into the cold midnight air. Inside, the smell of coffee and bacon lingered, and the neon sign outside hummed a faint, lonely buzz. 23-year-old R. Clenna Brooks wiped down table 6 for the 4th time that hour. Her hands moved automatically, but her mind wasn't there. Every night felt the same, quiet, endless. A loop of refilling coffee cups and pretending to smile. The diner sat along Route 17, a long strip of forgotten road where truckers stopped more out of habit than hunger. The jukebox still played Elvis, the booth still smelled like vinyl and nostalgia, and the coffee machine hissed like an old man with secrets. Lena's reflection flickered in the window. Tired eyes, auburn hair pulled into a loose ponytail. A crooked name tag that read, Lena. This wasn't her dream. But after her dad's stroke last year and her mom working double shifts at the nursing home, dreams weren't a luxury anymore. She checked her phone between orders. Nothing new. No messages, no how are you texts, just silence. And yet there was one thing that always gave her comfort. The regular who sat in the corner booth every Tuesday night. A blonde woman. Maybe mid-30s, quiet, always alone. She drank black coffee, left a 20 on a $10 bill, and never stayed to talk. That night, as the clock hit 12:43 a.m., the woman was there again, head bowed, tracing her finger around a half-empty cup. Lena noticed a small scar on her wrist she hadn't seen before, and when their eyes briefly met, she saw something deep and wordless behind them, like someone who'd seen the world end and come back. Alive. The sound started faint, like thunder rolling. Far off the highway, then it grew, louder, closer, until the glass in the windows trembled. Lena froze mid-step. 5, 6, 10 engines roared into the parking lot, headlights cutting through the fog like angry eyes. No, not again, she thought. Marla's diner was used to the occasional group of bikers stopping by for coffee. But this felt different, louder, meaner. The sign outside flickered. Open 24 hours. As if warning her to close up and run. The door burst open. A gust of cold wind swept in with Viper Yer, the man they called the leader. Broad shoulders, tattooed neck, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Behind him came the rest, 10 men, all leather, noise and arrogance. They filled the space like a storm cloud. Evening, sweetheart, Viper said, his voice a low growl. Got room for a few thirsty travelers? Lena forced a shaky smile. Sure, booth or counter. Oh, we'll take the whole place, the men laughed. It wasn't the kind of laughter that belonged in a diner. In the far corner, the blonde woman didn't move. She simply watched, still as stone. Lena grabbed a tray, trying to focus. Pour coffee, smile, stay polite. That's what Joe, the owner, always told her. But her hand trembled. One of the bikers whistled. Hey, redhead. You shaking 'cause it's cold or 'cause we're handsome? The others laughed louder. Viper's eyes lingered on Lena longer than comfort allowed. Why don't you sit with us, sugar? We could use a little warmth. Lena swallowed hard. I've got orders to finish. The laughter died. Viper leaned forward, voice turning sharp. That wasn't a question. And just like Tip-Hat, the quiet diner turned into a cage. The truck driver at the counter lowered his newspaper. A young couple in booth 3 stopped talking. The entire diner seemed to hold its breath. Lena took a step back. Sir, please don't. But before she could finish, Viper grabbed her wrist. His grip was firm, mocking, the kind that made your bones remember fear. The sound of ceramic breaking somewhere near the kitchen echoed like a gunshot. "Relax," he said, dragging her closer. "We're just having a friendly chat." That's when the blonde woman finally looked up. Her name was Clara Hayes. Nobody in town knew much about her, just that she came every Tuesday, ordered black coffee, and tipped too well. Tonight, her calm gaze met Viper's reflection in the chrome napkin holder. "Let her go," she said softly. The room froze. Viper turned, grinning. "You talking to me, sweetheart?" Clara stood up. No fear, no hesitation. Just a quiet, deliberate motion, like someone who'd made peace with violence long ago. Her leather jacket shifted, revealing the faint outline of a tattoo on her forearm, an eagle's wings wrapped around a compass. "I said let her go." Viper laughed, releasing Lena just enough to taunt. "You got guts, I'll give you that. Maybe you want to join us too?" Clara stepped forward, slow and steady. "You don't want to do this," the tall man behind Viper snorted. "And what are you gonna do, little lady?" She stopped within 6 feet of him, hands loose by her sides. "You should leave." There was something in her voice that made 2 of the bikers hesitate, but Viper didn't. He reached for her shoulder, and in a blur too fast for anyone to process, his arm twisted, his wrist bent backward, and his knees hit the floor. The diner fell silent, except for the sound of his breath catching in pain. Lena's eyes widened. "Oh my God." The blonde woman's expression didn't change. "You were warned." One of the younger bikers lunged toward Clara, shouting something angry and wordless. She sidestepped, hooked his arm, and sent him crashing into the counter. A coffee pot shattered beside him, scalding liquid spraying across the tiles. "Stay back," she ordered. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried command, the kind of authority you couldn't fake. The kind men obeyed before they even realized they were obeying. Lena stumbled behind the counter, heart pounding. The truck driver reached for his phone. Clara's eyes snapped to him. "Call the sheriff." Then, calm as ever, she turned back to the bikers. "Anyone else?" Viper groaned, still on the floor, clutching his arm. "You think this is over?" he spat. "There's 100 of us outside." Clara didn't blink. "Then tell them to leave." He laughed, wild now. "You're dead, lady." Clara leaned closer, her whisper colder than winter. "You should have checked the cameras before you came in." Viper frowned, confused. Then he looked up and saw the small red lights blinking in every corner. Security cameras. "Recording everything. Smile," she said. Lena, trembling but emboldened by the woman's calm, pressed the emergency alarm under the register. The silent one Joe had installed years ago, but no one had ever used. Outside, the sound of more engines filled the night. Dozens of headlights flickered beyond the fog. The truck driver whispered, "She can't take them all." Clara's eyes didn't leave the door. "I don't need to." As the first boot hit the threshold, the police sirens in the distance wailed back, high and sharp, cutting through the night air like justice coming home. The flashing red and blue lights painted the diner walls like a heartbeat, steady, pulsing, alive. But inside, no one dared move. Lena's breath came shallow as 2 police cruisers screeched to a stop outside. The sirens faded, replaced by the static crackle of radios. Officers spilled out, hands on weapons, voices sharp through the wind. Clara stood still. She wasn't looking at them. Her eyes stayed on Viper, who now sat slumped against the booth, jaw tight, pride wounded worse than his arm. "You planned this," he muttered. Clara shook her head slowly. "No, you did." The officers entered, their boots heavy on the linoleum. "Hands where we can see them." The bikers hesitated. Then one by one they raised their hands, grudgingly muttering curses under their breath. The air reeked of burnt coffee and adrenaline. Lena stayed behind the counter, her hands shaking, her whole body trembling between disbelief and gratitude. She couldn't stop staring at the blonde woman, calm, steady, her pulse unreadable. An older officer approached her. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Lena nodded weakly. She saved me." When the officer turned to ask Clara for her statement, the woman was already gone. The back door, slightly ajar, swayed in the draft. "Wait!" Lena shouted, rushing out after her. But outside, there was only the hiss of cooling engines and the endless highway stretching into the night. Clara Hayes had disappeared, like smoke carried away by wind. And yet, something about her name lingered on the lips of everyone who'd been there. The waitress, the trucker, even the officers. They would talk about that night for years, trying to piece together who she really was. Only Lena felt she'd seen more than just a stranger. She'd seen a ghost from a different kind of war. 2 weeks later, Lena still worked the graveyard shift. The broken coffee pot had been replaced, the floors scrubbed clean, but the scent of that night refused to fade. Every night, she looked at the corner booth, empty, silent, but heavy with memory. One rain-soaked evening, the bell above the door chimed again. Lena's heart skipped. The woman was back. Same leather jacket, same quiet composure, but her eyes looked different. Tired, almost apologetic. "Didn't think you'd want to see me," Clara said softly. Lena shook her head. "You saved my life," Clara smiled faintly. Maybe I was just trying to save myself." They sat across from each other. The diner was empty except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the whisper of rain against glass. After a long pause, Lena asked, "Who are you?" Clara's fingers traced the rim of her cup. "Once I was a soldier, U.S. Army Special Operations. Afghanistan, 2011, Lena blinked. "You're military?" Clara nodded slowly, rolling up her sleeve. The tattoo on her forearm glistened faintly in the light, an eagle clutching a compass and a date beneath it. July 14th, 2011. "Lost my team that day," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "We were ambushed in Kandahar. They died saving civilians. I made it out. I've been trying to understand why ever since." Lena listened, tears pooling in her eyes. The woman across from her wasn't a hero in shining armor. She was a broken protector who'd never stopped fighting ghosts. "I thought coming here, staying quiet, maybe I could forget," Clara said. "But that night when I saw him grab your wrist, something in me woke up again." She met Lena's eyes, steady and raw. "No one deserves to feel powerless. Not ever again." The next morning, Clara was gone again, but she left something behind. Under her coffee cup sat a folded piece of paper and a small military dog tag, the edges worn from years of being held. Lena hesitated before opening it. The note read, "Lena, you reminded me what courage looks like when you're terrified. That night you stood your ground even when your voice shook. That's braver than any battle I've fought. People like you keep the world together while the rest of us are still trying to heal. If you ever feel small, remember you made someone like me believe again." Lena pressed the letter to her chest, tears streaming down. She didn't know why those words hit so hard. Maybe because for the first time, she believed them. That evening, when the clock struck 1 a.m., she looked out the window toward Route 17. Far in the distance, a single motorcycle headlight glowed before fading into the mist. She whispered into the silence, "Thank you." And for the first time since her father's stroke, since every dream had seemed to collapse, Lena didn't feel like just a waitress. She felt like someone who mattered, because sometimes the strongest people don't fight wars overseas. They fight them quietly, behind coffee counters, under flickering neon lights, choosing to keep showing up when life gets hard. Months passed. Spring melted into summer. The diner stayed open as it always did, its walls now covered with new photographs, customers, truckers, smiles. But there was one photo Lena kept taped under the register, the still frame from the security camera that night. It showed Clara standing between Lena and the bikers, small but unshaken, a single woman facing down a storm. One evening near closing, a little boy wandered in holding his mother's hand. He pointed at the photograph and asked, "Mom, who's that lady?" Lena smiled softly. "Someone who protected us," the mother nodded. A police officer? No, Lena said, her voice distant. Something stronger. Outside engines echoed faintly again. This time it wasn't menace, it was music. A group of local riders had started a community outreach program for veterans, inspired by the story that had spread like wildfire online. The Diner Angel of Route 17. Lena walked outside, watching the bikes roar past under the setting sun. She felt the warm wind brush against her face, and for a fleeting second, she thought she saw her, Clara, riding among them, helmet glinting in gold light. But maybe that was just the way hope looked when it wore leather and scars. She whispered, half to herself, half to the open sky, wherever you are, you made this place safe again. And as the last rays of sunlight hit the diner's neon sign, the flicker finally steadied, no longer buzzing, no longer broken, just steady and alive. It started as a whisper online. Someone leaked the diner's footage. A short, shaky video showing a blonde woman disarming two bikers before calmly helping a terrified waitress to her feet. Within days, it spread everywhere. Unknown veteran stops biker gang at midnight diner. News vans began showing up along Route 17. Reporters asked questions Lena couldn't answer. Who was she? Why did she leave? All Lena could do was tell the truth. She didn't do it for cameras. She just couldn't walk away. For weeks people came by, truckers, veterans, even teenagers from nearby towns, just to sit in the booth where it happened. Some left flowers. Others left notes that read things like, "Thank you for reminding me what bravery looks like." Lena realized courage was contagious. Even quiet acts, invisible ones, ripple out in ways you never expect. She started organizing safe night shifts at the diner, free coffee for night drivers, emergency contact cards on each table, and a community phone for anyone who felt unsafe. The small place that once held fear now held purpose. And sometimes, late at night when lights dimmed and the road fell silent, Lena swore she could still hear the faint sound of a single motorcycle engine, steady as a heartbeat fading into the distance. One foggy night, a stranger walked in wearing a veteran's jacket. He was older, heavy-set, his hair peppered gray. He ordered coffee and sat at Clara's booth without asking. "You knew her?" Lena asked cautiously. The man nodded. "I served with her. Kandahar 2011. He reached into his jacket and placed a worn photograph on the table. 7 soldiers smiling under a desert sun. Clara stood in the center, younger, her eyes bright but already carrying something heavy. Her unit saved a village that day, the man said. Lost most of her team doing it. After that, she stopped talking much, moved from base to base, then disappeared. Lena traced the photo's edge. She told me she thought she was trying to forget. He gave a faint smile. Clara doesn't forget. She just learns how to carry it. Before leaving, he handed Lena a patch, a worn eagle embroidered around a compass, the same tattoo on Clara's arm. She called it her promise, he said, to always find her way back to who she was. When he left, the bell above the door chimed softly like a heartbeat closing a memory. Lena stood there, holding the patch like it was something sacred. Because maybe it was. Months later, a summer storm rolled over Route 17. Thunder cracked, rain hammered the windows, and lightning split the sky. Lena was closing up when she saw them, 5 bikes pulling into the lot, headlights slicing through the rain. Her heart jumped to her throat. The door swung open, and for a moment it was like déjà vu. But this time they weren't the same men. Their jackets bore new insignias. Road Guardians MC. A tall man stepped forward, soaked and smiling. "We're here to pay a bill we didn't owe." Lena blinked. "What?" He nodded toward the photo wall. "Those men from that night, they're gone. Some locked up, some left the road for good. What you and that woman did, it changed people. Even us." He took off his jacket and placed a new patch on the counter, a white eagle, wings open. Underneath it the words, "Ride for Clara." Rain dripped from his gloves as he looked up. She ever comes back, tell her the roads remember her. They left as quickly as they came, engines fading into thunder. Lena stared at the patch, tears mixing with the sound of rain. The roads remember her. And suddenly, she understood. Some legacies don't need monuments. They ride through people. Loud, alive, unstoppable. That night, Lena sat in the corner booth and began to write. Not a report. Not an article, just a letter she'd never send. Clara, I used to think courage meant fighting someone bigger than you. But I've learned it's really about standing up when no one else does. I've seen what it looks like in your eyes, and now I see a little of it in mine. You once told me you were trying to find your way back. Maybe this diner became your compass. Maybe it became mine too. If you're out there, I hope you know you didn't just save me that night. You taught me how to live without fear. She folded the letter and placed it under the photo on the wall. The rain slowed outside, turning to a soft drizzle. A single headlight passed by in the distance, and Lena smiled. Because some people leave forever, but their light never does. It just finds another heart to guide. Autumn came quietly to Route 17. The fields browned. The diner's neon flickered earlier in the evening, and the air carried the scent of rain and burnt coffee. It was just after midnight when Lena heard it again, one single engine humming down the road. She froze. The same steady rhythm she remembered, from that night, softer now, like a heartbeat returning home. The door creaked open. There she was. Clara looked older, the edges of her blonde hair tinged with gray, a small scar cutting across her eyebrow, but her eyes, those calm, unwavering eyes, still carried the same quiet storm. Coffee? Lena whispered. Clara smiled faintly. If it's still the strongest in town. They sat in the same booth where everything had changed. No words for a while, just the sound of rain and two hearts remembering. Lena slid the letter across the table. I wrote this for you. Clara read in silence. When she finished, she folded the note carefully, pressed it to her chest, and said, You gave this place back its soul. Lena shook her head. You did that? Clara's gaze softened. Then maybe we both did. Clara stayed until dawn. When the first hint of light brushed the highway, she finally spoke about that night. Not the diner, but the one in Kandahar. Her voice trembled. We were ambushed near a village. Lost contact. Command wrote us off. But there were civilians. We couldn't leave. She stared into her coffee as if seeing the desert again. After it was over, I came home. But I didn't know how to live normal. The quiet felt wrong. The world kept spinning and I couldn't catch it. Lena listened, every word sinking deep. You found it again? Lena said softly. Here, you found your compass. Clara smiled faintly. Maybe, or maybe it found me. As the sun climbed higher, Clara reached into her pocket and slid something across the table. It was her compass patch, the eagle wrapped around the needle. Keep it, she said. The road will always need people who remember what's right. Lena's eyes shimmered. You'll come back, won't you? Clara stood, slinging her jacket over her shoulder. You'll see me where courage shows up. Could be here, could be somewhere else. She turned toward the door, her shadow long and golden in the morning light. Weeks passed. The diner returned to its steady rhythm. Trucks rolling by, coffee brewing, laughter bouncing off the chrome counters. But something had changed. The photo wall now held a new frame, Clara's compass patch beneath a simple inscription. For those who still fight even after the war is over. Sometimes Lena would glance outside at the horizon and swear she saw her, a solitary rider in the distance, hair whipping through the wind, a flash of sunlight on chrome. People still came, not for the food, but for the story, a story of a woman who carried her past not as a burden, but as a shield for others. And every time a nervous traveler walked through that door, Lena would smile and say, You're safe here. Someone made sure of that. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the hum of a single motorcycle far into the hills. A promise kept, a compass pointing home, a legacy written not in medals, but in kindness and courage, because heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes, they just order black coffee and sit quietly in the corner booth.